And our first item is review of Q4 2020 financial report. We have 15 minutes, and Mark, I was hoping we could go over the assignment of fund balance on page 6. And then I wanted to talk about page 67, because I was looking through this report and I'm like, ho hum, another quarterly report. And then I came on this and I was like, oh my God, what is this?
That is the fourth quarter presentation of the unspent bond proceeds that we talked about last year. So
I know I was astounded, and I think it's a great report, and I want to go over it so that Jessica and Arthur, are really clear on it, since I'm not going to be here, and this is great new information. Anyway, okay, so our let's see. So on page 6, Jessica, Arthur, are there specific things you wanted to talk about? I don't want to monopolize our 15 minutes on this, so.
I'm just listening in for now, guys.
I had one question, but sorry, I have to find where there was. Shoot, keep going, and I will find my question.
Okay, so we had so our fund balance. We had budgeted to end the year at $6,049,000, but we're ending the year at $6,376,000, which is actually $30,000 more in balance, fund balance, than we had last year. And so, okay, not prepaid and long-term receivables. I understand that's things that are coming in, but just haven't hit the budget yet, right? We have $321,520 for the neighborhood loan program. How did that get there?
well, part of the long-term receivables are our outstanding balances for the neighborhood loan program. So some money we've loaned out.
Okay.
321,250 is the remainder of the 535,000 that the board has reserved for that program. So it's between the two categories. You have all the money from the neighborhood loan program, of which
okay, so like we have more money being paid back from the loans that have gone out. That's what they, okay. Future retirement costs I get for, okay, that 20,000 for marketing communications. Are we just holding that balance, or as a reserve in case they go over, or what?
Well, right. That's kind of what we've done with our future retirement cost line item. When we closed the marketing fund, there was a lot of pretty uniform opinion that we should put that money aside for marketing related efforts. So we don't program for it in the event that we needed to spend additional money from marketing, something comes up or whatever. Any overages then would just reduce that. So far, we haven't had any overages in those areas. So it'll stay there until we go over budget on some marketing effort, and then that'll kind of whittle that down over time to make sure that it's used for the intent that the board wanted it assigned for.
Okay. Okay, just go ahead, Jessica.
Sorry, I found my question. So
okay.
in the capital fund, so in the revenues, it says that there's unbudgeted revenues about 28,000 from the residual 2019 sidewalk special assessments. How did that happen?
Well,
I don't remember that.
Yeah, well, that happens because when the board adopts the sidewalk special assessment program, they have given the alternative for people who have special assessments for sidewalks in excess of $1,000 to split those payments between the year of the program and the following year. But when we're in budget cycle, we don't know who's going to take advantage of that and who isn't. So that is just the balance of the people who were over $1,000 that were split and held over to the following year. So
So it's not that we were under budget in the sidewalk program. It's just that these are funds that have been paid off, essentially.
it's carryover balances, if that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not that because we had, and I'm sure you remember the whole sidewalk, that we had planned for less and then needed more. And so this is not in relation to that. It's just, okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, were there any other questions on the TID or anything else? Because I did want to talk about page 67. Where did that go?
I had one other question. I was
Yeah, go
talking
ahead.
while my mute was on. So there was, I just am wondering, like, what happens to the capital? So the capital budget is over by 7.25, or is the capital like?
What page, Mark? What page is that of that?
Oh, it's on 5.
What?
Page 5 of the
Oh,
8 in the PDF, but 5 in Mark's document.
Okay, let me look at that.
So, because it says the 2020 capital budget is just over 7.25 million. Do you mean like it's just a little bit more than 7.25 million, or are we? Oh, it sounds like very.
no, he's just
silly
saying that's
question.
the amount of the budget. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then the only other question I have, and then we can move forward. So the stump grinder. So it looks like it was, 16,000-ish under budget. So what happens to that 16,000, or maybe that's why we're going through the next sort of part of this document.
Start getting into the actual spreadsheet look at the capital fund. You got your standard revenues and expenditures and budget side by side, and at the bottom you end up with a total. And that kind of that'll fall to fund balance. If we spend less, some of it's carried forward, like there was a $170,000 truck that wasn't delivered. So, and we knew that, so that gets rolled forward. So it's a revolving program. And that's why we provide a lot of detail in the page behind the standard spreadsheet view as well. So you can see how individual activities are going. Not just the categories that's in the budget, but the individual projects or items. So at the end of the day, it all stays in the capital fund. And that's one of the things when we get to budget time, it's pretty standard to ask how much money do we have in capital reserves. I try to give you the best answer I can, given that we're always in the middle of what would be this year now. And we don't necessarily know that, but I can always tell you where we started the year and you just budget accordingly.
What page is the capital budget on?
Sure, let me
Is it before the sewer?
yes.
Water. Okay, water.
So just so I'm clear though, that like, I'm sorry.
Page 37 of my report.
So I just want to be clear that like from that particular piece of equipment, that $16,000 will just, because did we bond for that? I don't remember.
No.
Okay, so it just stays in capital reserves, and then for 2022, there's for budgeting plans for 2022, essentially in capital, there'll be $16,000 ish extra.
Well, all other things equal, but for example, when you approve an extra voting machine that wasn't budgeted, well, that comes out of the same money that would have otherwise gone into the bottom line, or police org study, or any of those things that are. So it gives you the flexibility. We hope to do things that aren't foreseen a full year and a half in advance.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Those were all my questions.
So so you see that the ending fund balance in the capital fund was budgeted to be very little, but it's actually 3.6 million, because I guess there was a lot of spending we didn't actually do. Oh, large construction projects was under by a lot. But then, so then a lot of it's assigned though, for including the Southeast Mill Overlay. A lot of our mill overlay projects are assigned out of that fund balance. So, okay, so now, okay, so now if we go to page 67, where you kind of, page 64 of your report, where you kind of laid things out.
Sure.
So, okay, so this is our latest debt issue, 5.875 million.
Yes.
And do we, could, we have other debt issues though, or do we have other projects that are funded that are not yet done, but that are funded with other debt, or is this it?
These are the only, other than the sewer revenue bonds that we just issued in December.
Yeah.
These are the only open balances for bonding at this time.
Okay, so this is everything.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I like this because it shows like what we bought, what projects we bonded for, which is hard to remember sometimes. And
Yeah.
then it shows what was actually spent in 2020. So we have 30,400 sort of left over for roads generally. And alleys, it looks like we're right on target because we're planning on spending, no, but we're spending a lot less than that on alleys. So that you just have to update that, right?
Well, alleys are going to happen in 2021. So
Right, but they're like
a little advanced engineering, but whenever the construction and inspection bids come through, and I apologize if they've come through and I just don't recall, but once we start going, that'll go into that segment, right?
Well, I think it's on the agenda tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in tonight's packet.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, but we can update that.
Yeah.
And then, so sidewalks. Is there a way to show, you said we had a balance, oh, we don't really have a balance of assessments. That was just a timing thing of when they came in for the 19 sidewalks. Okay,
Correct.
so we don't have a balance forward. Okay, so I guess what, so the Downer Avenue South resurfacing, that you also show as assigned up above in the capital. So that capital budget is not just general fund funded projects, it's bond funded projects too.
Correct. It's both tax levy and bond funded projects in the capital.
Okay. Okay. So so these two numbers should correspond to
Yes.
what's assigned. Okay.
Yes, I spend a lot of time making sure that that's the case.
Okay, but then in 2020, so we had budgeted to spend 710, 695 if you net out contingency, but we only spent 212.
Mhm.
So we've borrowed, we have about 400. So we're budgeted to, so why did we only spend 212, I guess is the question. Was it just cheaper than we thought, or did we not?
Well, the
do
212 is cheaper than we had planned compared to that $410,000 amount, right?
Yeah.
And the remaining projects haven't commenced yet. So,
Okay.
so we'll see how those work, but that's a good start, you know.
So we haven't, so, oh, I see, because Downer is no, when is Downer? Downer was supposed to be 2022, but we didn't do it in 2020.
Downer was supposed to be in 2020, but there's some design going on with the Southeast Sewer Project that we're not sure if we're going to have to tear that road up in 2 years or not. So it would be prudent not to move forward with the resurfacing and then dig it up in 2 years. That, you know, so we'll wait and see how that design work comes together here in the next year, and then we'll figure out when Downer will be resurfaced, and then and again, everything in that top section is stuff that could be retasked to any other street related project. So
okay.
So,
Okay, so I just for Jessica and Arthur, so that number under remaining balance is 2,524,860 is sort of what's left, and what's spoken for is the 2,030,000. So I mean, this is kind of gives, I think it's really great because it gives us a sense of, with the bond, what we've been able to fund. Downer's been delayed, but so just so you know that there are available bond funds that need to be reprogrammed.
Can I ask a question
Okay.
real quick, guys? And I'm sorry if I missed it. I apologize. And I agree. This looks great. I'm wondering about the surface for the police station. Is that something we can consider with these funds?
that would be a municipal parking lot. Or I'm sorry, the police facility would be under the next segment. Or I'm sorry, the bottom segment, the police facility improvements. I could probably make a case that we could take it out of as a municipal parking lot as well. It's got some flexibility, but I can't make the case to take police money and spend it on Hubbard Park, for example, so there'll be opportunities to be flexible with whatever comes up later this year or potentially early next year.
That's great. Thank you.
I
So
do.
just-
Go
sorry.
ahead.
So just to kind of piggyback off of that question. So in the packet later tonight, we'll be approving the alley contract for construction. I don't have the number in front of me right now, but it's definitely less than what we had planned for. But we did take an alley out. And so maybe this is more of like a Leanne question than a question for you, Mark. But is it possible, like, since we may have money to do the parking lot for the police department, could we also potentially have money to do that additional alley that we had taken out? Or is that more for her?
The money's there. It's just a matter of what the construction bids were when the decision on scope was made.
Mhm.
So I don't fully
Didn't we take that alley out because of infrastructure issues, or there was something going on with that alley behind Capitol where we had to take it out because there was something a little bit more complicated with the infrastructure?
I went back and looked at it, and it was, she says something like the stormwater infrastructure is not where they thought it was, and that they're going to have to go on private property to put in the storm infrastructure. So it looked like it probably wasn't one that we could do this round, and the next round's not till like 2025, unfortunately. But I mean, that may change too.
So then but the excess proceeds from the alley project could potentially be used for the police department parking lot, is what you're saying, Mark?
I think I could make that case. That's a somewhat public lot and not exclusively police facility. But I mean, I think it is more of a police facility issue since it's not signed for public parking or anything like that. So I would prefer to keep it classified as a police improvement. But we can get to that discussion if the board wants to reconsider the addressing that parking surface at a future time.
Okay, I don't want to go. Oh my God, we didn't even get to. Did we have a second thing we're supposed to talk about?
Yes, you've got facility and mechanical assessment RFP.
I just wanted to say one thing. We ended the year we ended the year with more reserves than we had started the year with last year. And we ended up not having to use any of our stabilization fund. And I do want to ask you and Rebecca to commend the department heads and yourselves for staying on budget, for keeping an eye on the budget, for keeping our expenditures under control. Because that's a really important thing, and I think all the board appreciates the work that you do to keep the budget on target. So I do want to just mention that and hope you convey that to all the department heads.
Absolutely, thank you.
And I would even say even more so this year because of everything that's happened this year. I mean, I think it's really something to be really proud of. So thank you guys.
Yeah, Shorewood was in a very fortunate position that they didn't have a lot of things dependent on like park fees, stuff like that. Because if you're operating golf courses and park systems, that'd be a huge hit to your budget. So we've been pretty fortunate.
And it looks like there's going to be a pretty good money coming through the feds, through the states. So, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get something there. I didn't have any comments on the facility condition assessment RFP, I don't think. Did either of you guys?
I just had one question and maybe I just missed it when I was going through the packet, but what did we budget for this project?
20,000.
20? Okay. That was my
I
only
had no
question.
questions.
Do you need a
There
motion?
was one thing, now I can't remember. There was one thing, but now I can't remember what. So yeah, I think let's just, yeah, if you have a motion to approve the RFP. let's just do
I
that.
move to recommend to the village board the facility condition and assessment RFP.
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. I will adjourn budget and finance. Sorry to barge in on your time.
Okay, we're staying on this same link, right?
Same link, but we're scheduled not to begin until 6:30.
Oh, I thought we were 6:15. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have more time.
Yeah, so no, so sometimes if I
I'm like,
don't
oh, I
know
felt
if you guys are
guilty.
gonna if I don't know you're gonna carry over, because we can't start until a particular time, I knew if you ran over time on budget and finance, then we would catch up with wherever we would be. But so we have you have 7 minutes.
Okay, does anyone, if there's any other questions about the fourth quarter report, I'm gonna go over it and see if I can figure out what my question was on the RFP. Now, this will be part of the capital plan, correct? The whole capital planning process?
The RFP?
Well, the reports on the
Oh,
building.
yes. Yep. Yes.
Okay, and because I know the library commission one for Village Center that I thought was very good.
Yes.
Oh, I know what it was. It was priorities, like a saying, oh, this is critical and it has to be done immediately. I mean, I don't want a consultant to come in here and say, here's $2 million in costs that have to be done right now. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I think we know pretty well with our facility maintenance staff, like what the conditions are. And I don't want to create a crisis situation from the consultant. So I'm a little hesitant to have them coming in and saying, oh, this is, you have to do this right now, because then that puts the board in a that kind of paints us into a corner. So I don't have a problem with them saying this should be done in the next 5 years. This should be done in the next 10 years. But I'd rather not have a consultant come to the board and say, this is absolutely critical. It should have been done yesterday, because then we look like chumps that if we don't immediately do it or budget for it the next year. And that puts us in a position of, it puts us in a difficult position budget wise. So I think we want to know, but I don't know that we need to have a consultant coming in and saying something like that. What do you guys think?
Is that what is in the RFP?
It says after like identifying deficiencies. So let me see.
So priority one has a currently critical. So this would be to correct safety hazards. That's like it's the number one thing under that bullet. Things that would require some immediate attention, and primarily it will end up in the bucket of safety. And
Well,
then
yeah, return of facility or equipment to operation. Then the second category is if not corrected expeditiously, will become critical within a year. And so I guess I'm just saying, I don't think it puts the board in a difficult situation to have a consultant come in and say, hey, this has to be done right now, like, well, we may not have the money to do it, or we may want to do this road project instead, or we may want to do the canoe launch. And so that, but then we have this out there like, well, this is critical and you didn't do it. I don't know. That's just what I feel about it.
I mean, do we have any indications as to what would be in the priority one recommendation?
Probably like fire, like if we have fire systems that are not up to date, elevators, maybe if we have. So there might be things that like they're working, but they're not, like if you built it new, it wouldn't be code,
At the same time though, for those types of issues, we, because of the age of the building, construction is really the only thing that would trigger some of those enhancements to be made. So I think that, so the improvements are there that are grandfathered. So unless we do things to them, then we wouldn't necessarily need to bring them up to code. That's generally how it works. But I think that in here, I think it's just for some reason uncovering something that perhaps we didn't think was a huge problem before.
Because I sort of almost think that's like the point of it, is to see, is there, I don't think like, in a 100-year-old building that everything's going to be perfect. And I think we already all know that. We don't have to, we don't even need to spend the money. We all know nothing in our old buildings are perfect, but like there are things that are grandfathered into the code and are working, like in my opinion, and I'm not the consultant obviously, but that wouldn't fall into priority one, but maybe it's, I don't know what off the top of my head, but maybe it's something that we aren't aware of that, could be critical.
Well, I'm not saying they shouldn't report it. I'm just saying, how they phrase it, because like to the building people, it might be critical, but compared, they don't know all the other things we have to fund, and so I'm just saying, I think it could put you guys in an uncomfortable position if there's a consultant saying, hey, there's $6 million in absolutely critical stuff. Like we'll know it, but I just don't know that I want a consultant calling it that, because then it looks like we're not addressing things, when.
Yeah, I guess my question is like, what's the downfall? Because can't we just pick and choose the things that we know we need to do or want to do, and just address the things that we decide not to do? I mean, is there really any kind of downfall that could affect us, or negatively on this?
So in the report, we had asked them to lay it out in a priority order. If the word critical isn't, maybe it's the word critical. Would you prefer to list some other descriptor?
Yeah, if they just said highest priority, then that's not, that lets us know what they would say is the top priority, but it's not saying, oh my God, you have to do this, because
The roof is.
we have a lot of competing needs and we may not be ready to do it or want to do it. And that was just my thought about it. Okay, well now
I mean, say it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I would just change that to, priority one, or highest priority, second priority, just not call it critical. Okay. So I'll, now's the right time to adjourn. I gave me a chance to remember what it was that I wanted to say on that RFP. So, so we'll adjourn budget and finance and move on.
All right. So we will bring the JPL meeting to order at 6:31. So first thing on the agenda is to consider the reserve liquor license for Les Rich and Poor Wine Lounge. Sarah, do you want to start it?
Sure. So in February, we received an application for our last liquor license, which is a reserve liquor license from L'Oreal McKinley. They are looking to occupy 4003 North Downer Avenue under, Oakland.
Oakland.
And they're looking to open a wine bar that I believe is a members only type wine bar. So it's much different than the wine bar that we approved last year. L'Oreal, if you want to unmute yourself and kind of give some background of what you guys plan to do in the space.
Sorry, we're new to Zoom.
That's all right. Welcome.
Hi, I'm L'Oreal, and this is my husband, Markel. Basically, we are opening a private membership-based wine lounge. Just for people to come and just hang out, you know, do work, relax, something like more intimate, nothing like a bar feel. It would sort of be like a Starbucks feel, but wine will be there. Also coffee, tea, small appetizers, nothing big. Yeah, that's about it.
Can I
Could you talk a little bit more about the membership, private membership sort of situation? That's some, I'm not familiar so much with that concept when it comes to like wine bars. Could you discuss that a little bit?
So basically, do you want to discuss say the
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was that?
the private wine lounge membership? Like, what does it mean?
So pretty much it's just gonna be like a members only lounge, where obviously there'll be membership rates. And in order obviously to come inside the lounge, you gotta be a member. I guess I'm confused as to the question. If that's what.
Oh, no, I just wanted you to discuss the concept a little bit because we don't have anything like that right now in Shorewood, and I'm not totally familiar with that. There's not a lot of that, you know, I haven't had a lot of experience with the private club
Right.
or membership club wine kind of club situations. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about that.
Got you. I guess I would compare it a little bit to like a country club that would have a bar inside of it. Obviously, we're just removing it away from, you know, the exercise in the golf course. We're just putting it into a centralized location where that's, you know, the sole purpose is just to enjoy, you know, fine wines, learn about wines. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, it sounds like a fun concept. Will you have anything else? I know you guys are applying for the full liquor license. Will you be doing any cocktails, or are you sticking with strictly wine or any beer?
No, we don't plan on doing beer. We really want to stick to, like I said, wines, teas and coffees. But it's liquor wise, only the wines.
Okay. And I should know off the top of my head, but where is this located? Where's the space you guys are looking at?
3575 North Oakland. So right next to the exercise coach.
Oh, got you. Okay, perfect.
So I just have a couple of questions about the membership and how many members do you guys think will be members at a time?
So at this point right now, we believe that our typical night would be about 15 to 20 members. We believe that our numbers obviously will grow. And that's when we'd be looking at expansion in X, Y, and Z. But at this point right now, we believe our membership base would be anywhere from 100 to 150, but with a solid 15 to 20 members rotating obviously a day.
Okay, and then will you guys have like for your members education on wine? I think that I'd read that in your business plan, like some sommelier or somebody who is truly like a wine expert on staff, or how?
So at this point, we are both kind of new into the wine game, and what we're kind of trying to get away from is making it have to be that professional, like sommelier type of. We want it to be a comfortable environment where we're both actively learning more about wines, but like I would be able to give you information, but obviously I'm not a sommelier. We kind of want it to be comfortable. A lot of people, I don't want to say they get scared of, wine culture, but it might not be something that they are comfortable with. We want it to be more comfortable style.
Okay.
But with knowledge, obviously.
Sure. Trustee Menta, did you have any questions?
I just, Sarah, if this is not really a it's not really an open to the public kind of thing. Is there a restriction in liquor licenses about being public or no?
There is not. So it would be really no different than like a country club or, something of that nature, obtaining a liquor license to serve their members.
So like Harbor Chase kind of?
Correct. Yep. So not really open to the public. The random person isn't walking in there. It's really for the people who live there. So.
Okay. So they would need a liquor license. And if they were serving food, what percentage of their revenue would have to be food to get the wine license?
So it would have to be, they say at least 50% or more. So the idea is like you're more of a restaurant than a bar. Obviously like cheese plates and stuff wouldn't count. It would have to be, you would need the idea is you have a full kitchen that you could function and serve. And that the majority of one's bill that they're receiving that evening would be mostly food, not drink.
But I mean, it's 50% of their gross receipts?
Yeah, correct.
Because they're doing coffee too, so they might get, between coffee and food, they might be at 50%.
Yeah, it would be more of the question from the health department if they had a full kitchen. So they would have to have a full functioning kitchen. And that's where it gets a little here, that the health department really wouldn't deem them as a restaurant. They would deem them more as a bar.
And in the beginning to get, I think because the monthly fee is it 100 or 125? Right? Is that right?
Our membership,
Yeah.
we have a 125, $180.
Okay. So in the beginning to get people to join, are you how are you planning to sort of introduce into the community? Because it's obviously a pricey endeavor.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a soft opening. We've already started like to throw that ideas out to a couple of our friends, colleagues, and whatnot. We've already like drawn attention to it, or gravity. We want to open it up. Like I said, more of the educational purpose, but not to be scary. If that makes any sense.
So like if you're interested in, I guess more if you're interested in a membership, could you how does that introductory period work to get people to join, if that makes sense? Like, I'm interested in joining, but I'm not ready to commit to the $100 a month or $80 a month fee. How do I know that?
What we have discussed is having some type of, whether it's a 1 month a trial, but we got to get that worked out in our business model, just to the point where we don't, like you said, we don't want that hassle of making somebody commit right away, especially if they don't know if they would understand it or want to even, occupy that space. So that's just something we've thrown out and are working on.
I mean, I'm concerned about using our last liquor license for a, business that's like not really open to the public. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, personally, I sort of struggle and I see both sides of it. Like there's a business that wants to open here and I would not want to turn a business away that is here and are ready to get going. But then, I do see the same, the same side of it that, or the other side of it, sorry, that, that leaves us as a community with no, no liquor licenses. And, it's just a frustrating, I think, position for us as a community to be in. And I don't know, Milwaukee and Whitefish Bay and are not really like offering up any liquor licenses for the good of Shorewood anytime soon. So it's just frustrating, but I feel really inclined to have, if we have a business in front of us that is interested and ready to go, I feel really like it's almost the wrong thing to do to say no, because they're here and they want to do business here. Trustee Ursing, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'm kind of more on that camp. I believe that, it is difficult that we don't, this is our last liquor license. And, I think Trustee Menta was asking the questions before about food, because if you guys were to serve 50% of food, if your receipts equal 50%, then you would qualify for one of our beer and wine liquor license. And we have quite a few of those. So I think it's a struggle, but I'm firmly in the camp that if you're coming here you're coming to Shorewood and you want to do business and you have a great plan here, this is something new and creative, and I think it would be very successful, and I'd embrace it. So I thank you guys for looking at Shorewood and wanting to come here and do business. So I would be fully in support of giving this liquor license out, knowing that it's our last one, and it's tough to say that, but you're here right now with a plan, and nobody else is. And if we wait around for that person, we could be waiting for years. So.
Well, I mean, if we do get someone who wants to open, a lunch and dinner restaurant, we're not going to get another restaurant. I mean,
Well, we got the folks from Blues Egg have kind of committed to doing a lunch and dinner restaurant, and that's a pretty big space, and they have a liquor license. Now, I think us as a village, we've got to put a little pressure on them to say either you do that or you give the license back, because and if they do that, and they can open the lunch and dinner spot, and then we're talking about, we've got ceviche coming in, we've got potentially another burger joint coming in. I mean, I think Shorewood's pretty good with food. You've got plenty of options here in Shorewood. So, and I don't know what space we have available for a bigger full-on dining space. So I would suggest people frequent. People go to the restaurants that we currently have, like Bonobo or all these other restaurants. So we've got quite a few already.
I understand that we have quite a few, but we're not going to get bricks and mortar retail anymore. I mean, the only businesses that are talking about, we're not going to get a clothing store or a shoe store or a grocery store or a hardware store. We're going to get a bar, and I'm not exactly in favor of more bars, frankly, or other places, another restaurant. I mean, that's the only places that are renting bricks and mortar right now. And we're going to have no opportunity for that. I mean, that's economic development is not just handing out TIF grants. Economic development is having the ability, that it means we're like saying, okay, we have no more ability to open for anyone to open anything else until somebody goes out of business or whatever. So I'm just saying, I mean, it's not going to be my problem, but it's putting the village in a situation where we have no opportunity. So.
No, I think, I actually think this discussion is probably better suited maybe for the full board, because it is our last license, and I would say that, the board should discuss it because it is such an important sort of issue. We have we have 3 currently, 2, and then the reserve, and we haven't officially approved the other 2. So I think it's maybe looking at all of them holistically and saying, maybe picking and choosing a little bit. But, if we have another bar coming to Shorewood, I would support this business plan, this business model over another straight bar. I think this is just innovative, and the business plan just it's just a really creative idea. And and I like the idea that it's just wine, that we're not having people, just drinking booze and beer and walking around. We have enough of that in Shorewood. And this looks a little bit more sophisticated And I would, I would be, if we didn't, if we had plenty of liquor license, I'd be 100% in support of this. And, we have one liquor license, and that's kind of how I look at it. It's just, we have one and we have somebody with a plan. And, so, I mean, I don't know who else is coming here, to Shorewood, but you're right. I mean, if we give this in one out, then we're down, and we have to wait till somebody gives up their liquor license. So, but.
And I think your thoughts, just yours, think about, this is, I mean, we are having this conversation at the full board in, less than an hour. So, I think we need to have, because there are, we talked about this with another applicant, who,
Yep.
could they take just the, sorry guys that you're
Yeah,
sitting
sorry.
through this, but, could they take just the beer and wine license, and maybe that could work for them, and knowing that we have another application that is not an option for, and maybe that's something that we do for the good of the community, so that we have an opportunity down the road to to offer a liquor license to somebody else who maybe comes in, because I mean,
Yeah, and that guy said, well, but I want to serve a Bloody Mary. So, okay, so
Right.
we're going to give an entire liquor license to you. So you have a Bloody Mary on your menu for a burger place. I don't know. That didn't make, that's why I voted no. It didn't make sense.
I mean, I think that's the conversation, that we need to have tonight, knowing that there's, just knowing all of everything that we know now. I had one other question that I forgot to ask you guys, sorry, earlier. I do think this is a very different concept. And so to me that, like, I just don't know about that concept. Have you guys seen this be successful in other cities, or, how does that work?
Yeah, so we do know about additional wine lounges, maybe not necessarily locally, but there are lounges that I'm a member of, like a cigar lounge. It's pretty much the same concept, except obviously it's a cigar instead of wine. Membership fees are there. They don't serve alcohol. Sorry, one second.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, so absent the cigar lounge, like I said, and the other models that we're kind of working off of, we do know them to exist. So yeah, that's what we're working on.
Okay. Any other comments, trustees? Okay.
No.
So Clerk Breckman, do you need, I think you need a motion from us.
I do, just to refer it to the board, and then we'll take a vote.
Yeah.
So
Um,
move, you want me to make the motion to move to refer
Sure.
this to the full board?
Yeah, are you approving the, moving to recommend approval?
I'd be moving to recommend approval.
I'll second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. So we will, sorry, go ahead, Clerk Breckman.
So L'Oreal, I will be in contact with you. So it will be on our next village board agenda, which is April 4th, I believe. 5th. And so I'll be in contact with you on timing and things like that before that meeting. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda, I believe, is discussing the audio and meeting room improvements RFP. Sarah, are you kicking this off, or is it Tyler? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So in the 2021 budget, we had this allocated for funding for this year. So just bringing forward an RFP for your review. I outlined the timeline, and hopefully that we'll get a decision made by the summer and have someone come in and start with some of the improvements. So hopefully by this fall that we would be able to utilize the improvements on audio and video recording with some streaming capabilities, and also to integrate some potential that if we need to use a platform like Zoom, that we could have the potential to utilize that in the meeting space setting as well. So I don't really have any other additional comments, but I'm happy to have any questions that you may have on the RFP.
Sorry, Trustee Ursing, did you want to go ahead?
No, I was just going to, I just wanted to know where you're at with vendors, select with the process of like reviewing the equipment and the technology.
Oh, so what will happen is once you as a board approve the RFP, I'll send that out. Currently, I'm in the process of reaching out to other municipalities who have done some improvements in the last 5 or so years, and trying to get a list of some vendors that we can send out the RFP to. And so once I send those out, I would ask that if they would want to set up a time to see the equipment, that they would do it at that time. So it probably won't be till April when that would occur.
I'd assume that this is a much more important sort of, you know, situation, or a much more important issue now than it was maybe last year, you know, with our now familiarity with Zoom, and I think the community's familiarity with Zoom and seeing live stream meetings. I really think that has to be a big component, the live streaming aspect, at least of our meetings from now on. You know, I think anything above what we were doing before is going to be a big improvement, but hopefully, you know, we're thinking about all the details like live streaming and audio and that sort of thing.
The thing that I would really like to see is, in the past when we were face to face, if somebody was on vacation or, you know, really wanted to be a part of a meeting, the only way they could call in was to be like on that phone in the middle of the room, and no one could hear you.
Audio is really tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would, you know, not just, and I don't mean just, but, you know, not just for transparency reasons, but also for encouraging different people to run and encouraging different people to be involved. The idea of sort of like merging the face-to-face aspect and the non-face-to-face aspect, you know, I think for board members, obviously, as well as for residents, to me is something that's really critical. And I know you mentioned the Zoom, but I just want to make sure that, like, you know, if somebody's on vacation or if somebody has a sick kid and can't get in, that they're still able to participate in like a more meaningful way than the phone on a chair.
So. You bet. Yep, that's definitely something that is included in the RFP, and that we'll make sure that we get cost estimates for.
Okay.
And if you look at the budget sheet, I tried to design the budget sheet at the back where it'll be like a menu of options. So in the end, that we'll be kind of able to pick and choose, you know, what we feel is, you know, something that we want to be part of the final project. So that would be one of the items that we would certainly have them include.
Okay, great. Trustee Menta, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I thought that the 27,000, I didn't realize we were also talking about Village Center. I mean, is that going to be enough to do both?
Yeah, so when I did the initial, I got an initial estimate on just the Village Center space. So, and I believe that was in the teens when I did that. So we added on some funds for Village Center as well, and the library and the Senior Resource Center would kick in. And when I did the price estimates for Village Hall, that was for 2 rooms. So we would just do mainly the Village or the lower center conference space. And then recently I talked with Elizabeth Price, who asked for a Spectra conference room to also be added to that, just to see what the cost would be, and mentioned that the library or the Senior Resource Center would kick in more funds for.
Is the Spectra conference room that really teeny tiny one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're talking about doing the courtroom and the adjacent room that is right next to the courtroom, but not the room between, your and Rebecca's office.
Correct. So if we were to do like committee room or committee meetings, we would just have one in the courtroom and one in the committee room.
Okay, I just, would not wanna, I mean, I think the main use of it is, the village board meetings, CDA meetings, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't want to like go for a cheaper alternative in order to do, 5 rooms, or 4 rooms instead of doing, like a better solution for just the village hall. That's my feeling about it,
Okay.
It'd be nice to also see if there is a way, because I know the way we've done it before is just one camera, one wide shot. But if there's a way we could kind of mimic what we do here with little smaller cameras and audio devices at each sort of desk, I think, I think you could potentially do that affordably. You could probably find the equipment to get little webcams and audio devices for each trustee. I think people have become really familiar with this kind of layout. Anyways,
Okay,
it's something I guess we can talk when we get closer to that RFP process and work it out then.
Yeah, the one point I would like to make is typically for an RFP that especially has a direct impact for the board too, we would like a board member to sit on the review. I know, so that would be one of my other questions before we move on to the next item, is asking one of the 3 of you to help be part of the selection process.
I'd love to do that just because my background with video and audio stuff, I think that would be, if you guys don't mind, I think that would be, I think that would be helpful.
It's all yours.
The process. Awesome.
Well, Trustee Menta, do you have a thought? I'm fine with that.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Do you need a
Sorry,
motion for?
that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, I'll need a motion to pass the RF or the recommend passing the RFP to the next meeting for the full board. And then Arthur, I'll just be in contact with you as far as when we get to that point.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I move to authorize staff to issue the RFP for video and audio improvements in Village Hall and Village Center meeting spaces.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Zintai.
COVID.
Oh,
I know. You
I got my
sneeze or
shot.
cough twice.
Oh, I told you I got my shot.
Oh, great.
You're not giving away your shot. Okay, yes. So the next thing on our agenda is review next steps for open records. Rebecca, are you gonna lead this conversation? Okay, great.
Yep. Thanks. So tonight in your packet, there are 2 topics for discussion that I laid out 4 questions to get your input on. I provided you with a copy of what the fee schedule looks like right now, and then also focused in on fees for copying and scanning documents, and then the location of fees. So I'm happy to proceed in any way that you would like. Trustee Carpenter. I didn't know if we wanted to dive into the questions right away or if you wanted some additional background. I didn't want to be repetitive with the memo, I guess what I was trying to say.
Sure. I have a couple of thoughts. Do you want to, either way, just especially Trustee Stokebrand had said that article that was in the journal, which I thought was really helpful in giving, some guidance, hopefully, of where the legislation or where the legislative body will in Wisconsin be heading, and then also looking at like that number from $50 40 years ago to now is really like $150 today. So that sort of my thoughts, but I'd be interested to know what Trustee Menta and what Trustee Ursink think.
Do you want to start them with location fees?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So under location fees, there are two questions that we had for purposes of discussion. The first one was, should the village charge the actual wage and benefits or the hourly rate for location of documents? And then the second was, should the village charge the hourly rate for the specific individual locating the document or the lowest cost individual, even if they are not doing the location work associated with the request? So because of the way, every time we look at a document now, we're assessing, is this the best way to be stored? We're getting quotes on some other avenues to take our document management with. But in the meantime, we still have the situation where it's not going to be the lowest cost person who is obtaining the documentation. We kind of run through an example of a recent request that just occurred, just to provide perspective, because I was working on this and that at the same time. So, wanted to provide the example and just get some direction from the board in terms of how to proceed now. And so the result, the feedback that comes back from this meeting is what I'm going to be using to help guide some updates to the fee schedule, and then bring that back on our new notice for open records.
Could you go through the pros and cons of each one of those decisions for location fees? So if we have an employee that, let's say we ask Sarah to look through the emails, but she is X dollars, but we're only charging X dollars. What are the pros and cons to that? Obviously, we want to be as open and transparent as a community as possible, and let these records, not make it such a cost, such a big cost where people aren't trying to seek this information out. But at the same time, we don't want to take some of our employees away from things that they should be doing. So I'd love to know just kind of your thoughts on both those topics, if you have the pros and cons to those questions.
Well, let's talk about.
I don't want to put you in that position. If you don't feel comfortable kind of giving your pros and cons, maybe Trustee Amento will listen to you first, because this is your kind of world here. So I'd love to hear your opinions on these two.
Just to be clear, it's not that I don't want to provide feedback, but it's a policy decision.
Yeah, I understand.
That involves, I think, two components: being accessible, but then also the policy decision of the economics.
Mm-hmm.
So how, do you want to charge for the actual time being put forth to provide it?
Well, do we want to? I mean, okay, so it's almost like, I don't want to phrase it like the village is losing money if we decide option B, because to a certain degree, we would be losing money, wouldn't we, as a village, or the village would be almost going in with the resident that's requesting the documents. We'd almost be, giving a, I don't want to say a break in price, but I just feel like if we're paying somebody $36 an hour, but yet we're only charging $18 an hour, we're losing money somewhere. This is costing the village something. And is that cost worth it?
Well, and many times it's because the cost is already, you're paying for staff already. It's just diverting time spent on other items.
Mm-hmm, okay.
So it's more of an opportunity cost.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your opinions of the other trustees.
At this point, I went back and looked at our two prior discussions, the last two meetings on this issue. And I mean, I think I actually did provide a written proposed policy. And, I would prefer to lower costs by changing the method that we maintain data in, so that we're not printing out pieces of paper. We are emailing PDFs, where we are redacting digitally also. So I mean, for us to continue to have antiquated isn't the correct, outdated, let's say, methods of managing our records, and then charge the public a lot of money because we're, because we're not managing our records. I can't support that. We're already paying for staff through property tax. We don't need to pay for them double. I had another thought, but I can't remember what it is now. I'm just not in favor of. I'm in favor of managing our records when we think about the parking vendor that we're going to talk about later tonight. When we think about Pro Phoenix and Public Safety Committee is thinking about that in their discussions about the police. I mean, we need to start thinking about the types of information that people are interested in, and that we're managing them in a 21st century way, and that's going to reduce our costs, rather than let's manage it in a 20th century way and charge people a lot of money, which is essentially setting up a barrier. And I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are sort of similar to that. We were talking about that in relation to the planning department's records, and comparing it to Fox Point's website, and their website for those particular documents is excellent, because you at 10 o'clock at night as a resident, you want to know, where's my survey and what does it look like? I can go to my address and I can look that up, and in theory would never bother Crystal or Bart and get all the information I need. And so I would like for us to move to that, move more in that direction for all of our departments. And personally, I would rather see us spend the money to get there, with whatever that may entail. I mean, I know, Rebecca, you were talking about what, there's going to be a cost to scanning all those documents and getting them all in, into a system and paying for a system. But I would rather us spend that money so our residents don't have to pay on top of paying for living here. So, I think my question is, how do we do that? How do we, it seems sort of straightforward, but obviously there's a lot more that needs to go into it for us to be able to get there.
So I know that it's not the topic of tonight's discussion, but two of the things that we're doing is we've done an inventory of our vaults. So we're sending some prototype of old books down to see what we can get scanned in from the minutes perspective, which I think is really important for the village, because of the amount of information in there and the ability to search by keyword for everything that is typed so far, and not handwritten. I mean, it's still valuable to have the handwritten put in. Second, we're doing the same, trying to get quotes, because what I'm trying to build are estimates for you for purposes of budget, is we're doing the same thing with the planning and development documents. We don't have a complete inventory, like we don't know exact number of pages, but we have been working with a vendor where we're grabbing a portion of them, we're sending it to them to kind of get more definitive aspects. We'll still go out for proposals later. But I want to try to get you guys in the range to take steps with the most frequently accessed documents, at least the ones that we have in Village Hall. Third is going to be in process of gathering information to put together an RFP for document management. Because internally, as you look at, every time I go through a box at Village Hall, I'm wondering, okay, how do we set this up for the next person? Right? Because that's just an antiquated way to think that we're going to go downstairs in the basement and ruffle through boxes and boxes, which is what, I've been doing since I've gotten here. And so for whoever's here next, you just want to have an inventory there that you can go to, no differently than I think a lot of the things you guys have been trying to accomplish, at least since I've been here, which is, making sure that all of your plans and things are online, making sure that it's accessible in the best way. So to Trustee Amenta's point, if I have that in a digital format, that's super easy for us to then put into something and send off to somebody, So I think just as we move forward with everything that we touch, I think we need to ask ourselves those questions, because it's just, I think it's easy, but I'm a very digital person, right? So you're talking to someone who has an empty file cabinet in her office, because I choose not to work in, it's harder for me to work in that way. It's more accessible to me.
Yeah.
To work in the other way. So I want to share with you that I know I'm not talking about it in this memo tonight. Tonight's memo was really about fees, but know that that is something that we're working on. And that's not just me, because it's taking the collaborative effort of a number of our departments and looking at what they have. But that's what I intend to bring back to you in the future.
No, makes a lot of sense. I think, when we start thinking about the future and, I mean, it's really a digital infrastructure that we have to start considering. And there's a lot of moving pieces in that. There's, I mean, I've said it every time we talk about it, it's, there's little things that we don't think about, with like, security of those information, the people that can operate it. I mean, the school just sent out, open records with, and they forgot they left kids' names and survey data on there. And we don't want to be in a situation like that. So we need people that are trained at doing what they need to do with these digital documents, so we're not sending out the wrong information. So I think it's just a giant process, but I guess, and I'd be all in favor of it, but I think it's going to be costly and it's going to take time to build and develop, but I'd 100% love to see that day come. For tonight, I guess, I would go with option B, to be honest with you. That would be my preference, would be option B. If you'd like us to choose between one of these two options, I would say option B would be my preference.
And with option, so with question B there, would that be actual wage and benefit or the lowest hourly cost?
Lowest hourly cost.
Or lowest cost, okay.
Yep.
So, and that would that be?
What are you talking about, option B? What page is
Location,
that?
so it's under location fee.
Oh, under location.
Yeah,
Okay.
on page 104, I have it in my thing, so.
So, but you're talking about option B for location fee, but we also do need to decide, right, Rebecca, the option A or B in relation to the fees for copies and for scanned documents as well.
Correct. So first part is, do you want to charge the wage or the wage and the benefit? That's question one. For your discussion. Question two is, do you want to charge the actual wage or wage and benefit of the person actually doing the work, or just the lowest cost individual that we've specified in Village Hall?
And that is that $18.29. That's the lowest.
Yeah, that's actually increased since the time that was put out, because it was a 2018 cost. But yes, that would be a reflective. And that's just wages. It's not, so benefits are not included in that.
What is,
sorry.
I was gonna say, what, researching all the other communities, where do people land typically on this one?
So in most of the policies, it reflects the lowest cost, and then there's typically a footnote that says this may not be the person obtaining the records, and in such case, an additional fees may be charged based upon who locates.
Oh, I remembered what my other, I'm sorry, I remembered what my other comment.
Sorry, Trustee Erzink, was that your last? Did you have something more?
No, that's it for right now.
Okay, Trustee Menta, I'm going to go to you, and then we have a resident that wants to comment. So if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we, at the beginning of this whole process, I think I was curious, and I think the committee was curious as to what in total we were spending and what revenue we were bringing in and what it was costing us. And staff was never able to give us answers to any of that. So, I mean, I think we're spending a lot just looking at what we pay our attorney to go over open records. So, but I guess I'm a little like, we don't even know what revenue we're bringing in now, because we don't track that. It kind of reminds me a little bit of TVs at DPW yard. We don't track them. We don't know. So we can't tell you we can't tell you really anything about it. So to me, it's like, I think there's a third option here, which is we digitize and if there is a deficit, which we've never been able to verify that there is or not, that we address those costs the way we've all talked about by moving towards thinking about our records management and digitizing things, and making it cheaper that way rather than increasing costs, or charging location fees or anything. All of these budgets saying, should we do A or B? It's kind of like when you say to your kid, do you want to like brush your teeth now or read a story? Like no, my kids always said, I want to do something different, but I don't. Why are we talking about fees when we don't even know how much it costs us or how much we're taking in now?
Well, I think we did talk about that a meeting or two ago, because we've never, number one, there's not we've never, it's just something that has not been tracked. We could go back and take a look, but we haven't tracked our time for redaction. We haven't tracked, a number of things. So moving forward, we're going to start tracking those things, because we've said in a previous, I don't know if it was last meeting or the meeting before that when these requests come in, whether it's a charge or not to the individual, we want to see exactly how much time is being spent on this effort. So that's something that moving forward, we're definitely going to be collecting. But at present, right now I want to be able to help you update this policy. And so these are some of the policy discussions that for right now, acknowledging that we're going to come back to this.
But this is not, fees is not, this is not the policy discussion. At the 2 meetings ago, you were like, I want to talk about fees. The last meeting, we're going to talk about fees. I know you want to talk about fees, but that's not a policy discussion. That's not this policy discussion. And the board has been pretty consistent. We voted 6-0 to let people use their own scanners and scan things. I think you're getting the same message. You're getting a consistent message. I don't see why we are upping our fees when we can't even say what the costs are or what our current revenue is. It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's I'm not going to vote for it, but you guys do whatever you want.
Okay. Well, do we, Trustee Orsink, I think you had said your thought was to charge the wage and benefit or benefit the actual specific person?
I just said the wage. I think it'd be probably just simplifying just the lowest wage.
And I think whatever we can do to lower the cost. So if it's I agree. I think it should just be the wage. I don't think it needs to be the wage and the benefit. But I would, whatever we can do I understand that there needs to be some fee discussion, but I think whatever we can do to move towards a digital, I think we're all saying the same thing. Like we all want to move towards a digital document-free world.
I don't think we're getting there next week, or in a couple
Correct.
weeks. I think it's going to take time to build and develop. I wouldn't feel comfortable, and I can't remember voting for people to bring in their own scanners and scan things, but I must have. So, but I'm uncomfortable with it until we have that infrastructure in place, until we have something better in place. Like I just wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with sending people documents right now without having some, a policy in place about digital open records. So, but I'm more than happy and willing to sit down and work towards that goal. But as of right now, what's in front of us, I would say let's charge the lowest wage we can and see what happens from there. If we get inundated with, daily, if this is like it becomes a full-time job for somebody, then we have to revisit it. Until that happens though, I think we charge the lowest wage.
I had said that Jeff Davidian, he had his hand up for quite a while. So Jeff, did you want to unmute yourself and go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that providing public records is not an extra job on top of all the other work that a policeman or anybody else has. It's part of the job. That is a requirement of the job, like investigating a crime or issuing bicycle licenses. That's the job. And we don't charge citizens a surcharge or an hourly rate for a policeman to come investigate a burglary at their home, for example. Why is it that doing public records isn't a class by itself where we have to make a person pay for something that in every other way that we operate as a government is part of the package of services that are provided? Another thing I wanted to point out was that at the police department, at least, I think the salaried employees, management who take on easy jobs like unstapling papers and scanning them, they're not hourly employees, and there is no hourly rate for them. They're on a salary. So trying to find a way to charge an hourly rate for somebody who's salaried it seems to me stretching to try to put a cost on people getting access to records. You may not understand the digital world, or you may not be able to scan everything in your basement, but you have to think of it as a service that is like every other service that the government provides, and we don't charge extra for a burglary or for helping an old lady across the street. And I don't know why you feel compelled to charge people to monitor their government. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Rebecca, do you have from us the direction that you need for this evening?
Can we just cover the scanning of documents? We didn't talk about that one yet.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess my question about that is, like, I can understand the cost because of the paper for the, because you're in the memo, it's, you know, referencing color versus black and white. But I guess I'm sort of confused in today's day and age where, like, if I wanted to scan a document, I could bring my phone in and take a picture. And so I guess that one I struggle with the costs of and understanding it.
Will somebody need to be present during, if the resident brings their scanner in and starts scanning documents, will somebody on staff need to be present for that? Or will they have a separate room where they are set up with a scanner and they can just go through the box and scan the documents? Like, I guess what's the impact to our staff for something like this? Because I would assume if somebody wanted records, the staff would have to go find those records, locate the records, bring the records to a room and understand what's in that box. The resident would then scan the documents, and then the staff would have to go back through the box to make sure everything was there and in place. And because they're essentially just scanning digital files to their computer. So then, you know, so is that where the cost comes into play is with staff time? And are you envisioning a staff person kind of being, you know, available or with the person in the rooms doing the scans?
So the scanning that we're talking about in this memo is not someone bringing in their personal scanner to scan records. This would be village staff doing that no differently than making a copy, just to clarify.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yep. My
So
bad.
it would, sorry, so then it would be somebody who's requesting a document and that the clerk Breckman is scanning it to email to the resident versus the resident coming in. Could we offer that and say, you know, it's $25 for us to scan the document and email it to you. If you want to come in and take a few pictures with your phone, it's free.
Yeah, so I think we've already acknowledged that if the record is available for someone to come in and personally take, to your point, take pictures or scan on their own device, they're welcome to do that. So that we've moved from that discussion. Now, this isn't a situation where someone's asking us to scan no differently than make a hard copy record.
I would probably go back to the lowest way. I would probably do the same thing, the lowest wage.
So it's not, in this situation, I was just pointing out the fact that our cost and the time is similar, is the same minus the sheet of paper.
Right.
Because of the way we're charged through the copier doesn't distinguish between scanning the image or making a printed hard copy of the image. So I was just distinguishing between that to share with you just how those things are established. So really for you guys as a group, it's just whether or not from a policy perspective, you would want to charge for scanning in of documents that aren't already in digital format. So these are things that are in hard copy that someone is requesting in a digital format that you do not currently have in a digital format.
Got it. Okay. Well, I mean, I think if I'm following you, you're asking for us what fee would we charge if a resident decided they wanted digital documents, they wanted documents scanned and they wanted a digital version of those documents. What is the village's fee for that? Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Is there one? And if so, do you want it to be the same given how the cost structure for?
Are we assuming that the residents bringing in a hard drive, a flash drive, that sort of thing? Or
No,
are we supplying that? Or are we sending it in an email?
Sorry,
I'm
so
sorry.
two ways of which it would go. Obviously we could provide it, via email. If it was a larger megabyte file, we may charge the cost of the flash drive. We wouldn't take someone else's flash drive because that's it's not a prudent.
Right. It's not safe.
Right. So, but, the other option that, we've been using at times is, doing it by Google Docs or, Dropbox if they have that, capability. So that's also something else that we've, considered as well.
Yeah, I just assumed that if it's taking Sarah the same amount of time to scan, and we've decided to make it the lowest possible wage, regardless of the paper, I would still keep it the lowest possible wage.
Okay, so it wouldn't be the time the time is built into the cost of the charge. So for example, to make a copy, it's 10 cents.
Okay.
Right. So what I was reflecting in the memo is that, okay. All right.
I understand. So we were talking about location fee earlier. So now we're talking about just, okay, now we've moved on to that. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
And then you've laid out the costs here, correct? So the costs are laid out. Photocopying 10 cents. I don't know. I have no.
I mean, Sarah's time is already paid for by the
Yeah.
property tax. So, I mean, I think the point Mr. Davinian is making is, I mean, yes, under state law, we can charge for this. But, and yeah, if it's costing us paper and ink or a flash drive or whatever, sure. But I mean, I guess I will step it back a little bit and say it is reasonable to look at some costs, but I would like to see, rather than seeing this piecemeal and this piece and then that piece and the other piece. I mean, I think we need a comprehensive policy with a statement of our overarching position on open records. And a policy addressing everything so we can look at it comprehensively. Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to get like these little questions every week,
And are you saying, so, if somebody was requesting something that is not electronic, that they, like you take it to the photocopier, you actually scan it, and based on our contract with the photocopier, it charges us like it was a piece of paper, correct?
Minus the paper, because that's
Right.
just right. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, in my mind, that's like the only charge that I think is applicable to pass on to the resident. So, I think you.
That's the only one that we're talking about in this scanning session.
but that's not 10 cents a page.
Well, printed is 10 cents.
No, but that's not what it costs us. That's not what it costs us from the
Yeah,
copy piece.
what does the copier charge? Because usually we have like a contract with the copier.
Mhm.
So is that like half a cent or?
Right, so that's listed under the fee for copies and scanned documents. We call out what that is in that section.
0.03 cents.
Mhm.
color.
That's for color and then the black and white. So in that situation, you're stating that you wouldn't want to charge for any time that we take to scan.
I mean, if it's, 7/1000ths of a cent, I mean, you'd be charging people like a nickel, you know what I mean?
I know, it's not even worth it at that point. I just, I think, you think about, what, for whatever reason, if we just get a mass of people coming in and wanting these documents, we just got to think of the absolute worst case scenario here, right? I mean, that's kind of something that, and then we say, okay, well, it's totally free. And then we have just a mass of people for whatever reason. I'm just, thinking outside the box here, but then that could take away employees' time from things that they need to be doing, and that's where the situation gets a little sticky. So.
Can I just offer one thing? Not that it matters either way. I just,
Go ahead.
so we really do have, not a huge amount of open record requests. But there are municipalities that get like 200 hours a week of open records request. And so that is something that could eventually happen at some point. So I think the idea is we just want to be prepared for that, because if that is the case, it tends to happen very quickly, and then this idea isn't in place. Because yes, like my time is budgeted for, but 200 hours of open records request is not. So that's just, I think, the direction we would want to know. When it's small, it's something that we can do and we fit it in our day. It's when it becomes really big, and some of these municipalities that it's been really big because they have a lot of development or things going on, it doesn't stop. It can be 2 or 3 years like that. So it's just something to consider. I'm not saying that it has to affect anything right now, but it should be something to consider.
That's a valid point. I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make, is what if this becomes 200 or 400, hours, then, then we might have an issue on our hands. So, sorry, Rebecca, you were going to say something? I know we've got a meeting here that we got to
Yeah,
get.
I know that. I just noticed the time,
Yeah.
so I apologize.
So what happens from here? Are you bringing this? I mean, I don't think we gave you really any clear direction.
We'll add that to the list. I'll add that to the list.
Anyone move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay. See you in a minute.